Hello, members of Carmel Doll and Toy Study Group. Today we are offering our very first program that we're going to have on our private Facebook group. So I hope you enjoy it. This is the program that we just had at our meeting, so I'm doing it again. So I should start with my interest in this type of infant doll. In the early 1980s, my mother was very fortunate and she won the lottery. And she treated David, myself, and one of her cousins to a trip to England. And we had never been anywhere before overseas, and it was very exciting. And one of the places that was on my list to go to was the Bethnal Green Museum of Childhood. And at that time, it was an amazing museum filled with fabulous dolls. And one of the dolls that caught my eye that I loved the most was a wax infant by the name of Princess Daisy. Princess Daisy was a gift to the Princess Royale, the daughter of Queen Mary and George. And it was a gift from the citizens of the Netherlands. And what I found fascinating, it was a baby doll, but didn't have the shape of a normal baby doll. She was a very kind of plain, ordinary doll, but what was fantastic were her clothing items. And so that inspired me to want a doll like a Princess Daisy. Fast forward on in history, Carmel Doll and Toy Study Group is having our first show at the Monterey Conference Center, and there was, on a table, was this doll named Rose. It was the first, for us, the first really expensive doll that we ever bought. She had a very interesting story that she belonged to the famous Gladys Hilsdorf, who was one of the early doll dealers that went to Europe and collected things up. And her home, which I have photographs of Rose in her home was like a hoarder home, except the hoard was the most fabulous things that you can imagine. So we were lucky to have the chance to buy Rose, and she's been with us ever since. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of this program. And I want to welcome our two new members, Kathy Turner and Rosanna DeFore. Welcome to the Carmel Doll and Toy Study Group. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Bru patent for the Bébé Teteur. And I don't think you can see it, but this is dated 1879. It's right here. And I think that this is very interesting. One thing I want to point out is that anybody that has done any kind of product development and gotten to the stage of patenting the product, I would say that there's a minimum of 2 years work before this. And particularly at this time when there's, they didn't have the internet and all the things that we have to get a patent up and running, that it was probably more time than that. And the product had already been tested. So you can't say that the Teteur officially it started in 1879, but it was probably been in production before that. What is very interesting about this patent is you can see the concept of how the nursing mechanism it works, but you can see a body that, as far as I know, was never really in production, because it has ball joints at the knees, it has elbow joints. So maybe this is something that they envisioned doing. There was a form of this much, much later. So I'm going to show you Rose's cousins and sisters, because the Teteur changed over its long period of time. Now, the first iteration of the Teteur, they would have used the what we would call the Bébé Bru face. I've seen very few of these, but I have seen them. This is just a regular brevete. But you can see the problem is, in order to do the mechanism for drinking or sucking, there is not enough room between the lips. So I think that they realized that this wasn't really going to work. And then there was another problem, that the shape of the back of the head didn't allow for the ball. So they had to come up with a new head to make this a viable product that could be done. Now, the oldest question in the world is, did the chicken come first or the egg? So what they came up with is this is a circle dot from the Brusian era of when they were making the Brusian heads. So there is now, if you can see, a little curvature in the back of the head, and we're going to try to get this on camera, and you can see there is a circle and a dot. Now, if you think about it, this is a beautiful little circle and a dot brew. If you think about it, why would you have a circle and dot on a head? It makes no sense. That is where they punctured it to make room for the key and the mechanism that went in the head. So I think that if any good merchant would see, hey, this is a pretty cute head. It's got lots of space for the mechanism, and they could paint teeth on it, and you could get out of one product, one mold, you could get two products. So it was really pretty smart. So, of course, the regular circle and dot brew without the mechanism of the Teteur would be the cheaper product because it doesn't have all the extra work to it. So now I'm going to show you, I've got a little stand-in that I'm not going to take rows apart, but I want you to see how it actually works. So here we have, you can see the rubber ball that was created the suction. It's still there, although it's petrified right now. And then they used a piece of tin to protect it so that it wouldn't move around in the head. And then there's the key. So when they turn the key right or left, she would suck the liquid from the bottle. And then if you turned it in the opposite direction, she would put it back into the bottle. Now, the reason that this is such a popular doll, but there aren't that many today, is if you think about it, I mean, wouldn't this be so tempting for a little child to give her milk or give her soup or all kinds of things? So I would imagine that a lot of these balls were filled with things that became putrefied. But you can see that it is the same face. Now these dolls are different sizes, so they have a different look. But the circle and dot was absolutely used for the Bébé Teteur. Now this one is, and so is Rose. This is from the Henri Chevreau era. And it has the beautiful, what they call the Chevreau body, which has a metal skeleton. And then on top of the skeleton, there is various sea grasses wrapped. And then on top of that, there is the skin. And this one is, contemporary to Rose, except that she is kind of unique, is that she has the wooden arms that were really made, I believe, for just 2 years. So this is kind of a novelty. Although today, this is considered less than, it is actually rarer than the bisque arms. And I believe that whoever did the carving for the wooden legs also was responsible for the arms. But I think it came down to the cost of what it took to produce that. So that gives you kind of the history of how these happened. This mechanism was in play for over 81 years, probably a little longer than that. So, you know, if you think about it, it worked, why change it? So I'm going to put her here, and then we'll go in and we'll have a look at Rose, who owns all of these clothing items. One thing that I should point out, if you notice that there's quite a bit of space in her eyes, of the upper lid. And one of the reasons for that is all Brus in this period, and we're about 1883, all Brus in this area had fur eyelashes. And if you look at this original Bru banner, you can see that they've got great big eyelashes. And I think that this is a really wonderful document because it tells you this is Bébé Riche, this is Bébé Teteur, this is Bébé Chemise, and here's another Bébé Riche. And I think that how they put this together, you can really see that the baby in the middle is, you know, they're all paying homage to the miracle of this baby. And here you can see the bottle. So she is nursing at this moment. Now you can see we have one bottle that's very similar to hers, that to this illustration, but that is not a real Bru bottle. This is a real marked Bru bottle. And I think that that's probably one of the rarest items in the world to find of a Bru doll. I mean, you can see, just it'd be hard to see it on the camera, but right at the bottom, you can see across the very bottom, you can see it says Bébé Bru. Now, what I think is a miracle is look at the condition of her body. It's really like the day it was made. She has the exact same mechanisms that I just showed you. When she came to us many, many years ago, she had all of the clothing that you see, hats, everything. The only thing, we've added a few accessories here and there just because it's fun to collect. As I said, these were made for a very long time, and here is one of our wonderful ephemeral pieces that we have, and this is an order for 1920, and it is a wholesale order, and I believe it's 150,000 francs. And what's very interesting is they're all dressed dolls, and they were all going to London. So I can't decipher if there were any Teteurs in the lot, but I think there might be. So one thing about having ephemeral pieces, and those of you that have Brus in your collections, do some screenshots of things, because you can see we have two baby dresses, and they are almost identical, but one is in pink and one is in blue. So this is all of the, what they call the English embroidery with lace, and then behind it is satin. Now, our mannequin is blowing this top out, but it's very form-fitting to a Bru. And if you look at the size of the arms, the cuff openings, this would never fit a German baby doll. So it's very, very form-fitting. So I think these are the pretty dresses that you will find on a Teteur, but I will show you that this is what it would have come out being sold with. So this is your swaddling and your little top and your bib. And I have seen these many times. It is lined with flannel. It is meant to keep the baby tight. And the nice thing about this is this is a cotton file. This is very durable. Another sign in a real Bru item is you're going to see these buttons that are almost like Bristol glass or Peking glass. They seem to favor these white glass buttons. So look for this again, but you can see, if you look at her baby dress, where she's decked out on her presentation pillow. She's got a very fancy bib that's really not for feeding, but for showing off. And here you can see something very similar. And the over-the-top bonnets that are wired that I think would be very uncomfortable for a little babe, but that's what they did. Now there's some very interesting pieces in her collection, and this is something that I always use to have fun with people, to ask them, what do you think this is? And nobody ever guesses unless they've been here before or seen one of our programs. But these are clips to hold covers when you put the baby in the carriage. So clearly Rose needs her own carriage. And then another oddity that she has that was part of a wardrobe for a lady or for a baby or a girl doll, it appears to be an apron, and it is in tulle with a beautiful little lace insertion lace with beautiful pink ribbons. But what you would do is, if she were in the carriage and they were going out for a stroll, because remember the roads weren't paved and there was horse messes, and she'd put that on, and that would protect her costume and her face from being having things flying at her. So it's actually a very little rare piece that often gets people don't know what to do with it. But this is a carriage cover. The other thing that in Rose's collection of clothing, she almost has the who's who of cotton files and waffled files. So here we have a cape with this beautiful diamond design with amazing lace trim under a very utilitarian baby dress. Then there's another one with a diamond pattern quilted. And then another here. This is almost a baby dress. It's not quite a cape. And another here. And this one has a polished finish, a very silky finish to it. Now, I know that a lot of people like to launder. I prefer to leave them in the condition that they are. But you could launder them. Now, these, I think, are a scream, because if you look at the shape of her body, she's got a very beautifully shaped, not baby body. By the way, the concept of the baby doll really did, with the bent limb baby and the chubbiness, what didn't really happen till about the art doll movement. And that's when the baby doll, 1909, I believe, and that's when that started. So she has the things that go with the baby, but she has a funny body for it. So these are her file pants that would go over her nappy or her diaper. And I think that they're funny because they hang down, but you remember that she would be fully wrapped. And I wore plastic pants similar to this, and I will quote my mother that said that, she said, my babies never had diaper rash because she was on it and changed them. So this would go over it, and I think that they're great. And she has, I think, 3 or 4 pairs of these. Interesting, there are no diapers in, which would have just been a piece of fabric, a muslin or something like that. None of those have survived with her. But it is an important thing. This, if she were wearing this outfit, she would be fully covered with this. Some of the things that I love that she has are like these cloths, cleaning cloths that, have these beautiful hand-decorated, hand-painted ribbons. Speaking of pants, here's another pair of her pants that are all hand crocheted, or I think these are knitted, excuse me, these are knitted. And, it's basically the same concept. If these were laundered, they'd probably become smaller, but they'll stretch. And then she has the matching booties to go with it. Lots and lots of little pairs of little house slippers. These are crocheted, which are lovely. And these were probably mommy made for for Rose. And here's her little baby ribbons, and the ribbon would be here, and then she's got her bobbin to do all the insertion, because there's a lot of, if you look just right here on this the pin holder right there, you've got your insertion where you put, if you clean this, you'd have to take the lace out. By the way, if you ever do clean a dress with ribbons, take the ribbons off. If you don't, you will ruin the ribbons and they'll never go back on. Not to go backwards, but here you can see a very late advertisement from the Paul Gerard period. There were, I think, 3 owners, yes, 1, 2, 3, before they merged with SFBJ. But this is the Paul Gerard, and here you can see the Teteur is featured, and let's just see if we can find out how much they were. So I believe that there were a lot of add-ons here. You can have it with a chemise, with a wig, or without a wig. You've got lots of, with piqué, and the piqué would be 4 francs 50. So there were a lot of, take a screenshot of this, people, because this will be very interesting for you to have. And then Bébé Noël, which, that's kind of cute too. And then it goes down to here to all of the trousseau, and then the lingerie, which that would, I think that most of these things would fit into the lingerie department too. So another thing that I love that she has is, besides the fancy, pretty hats, you've got these little utilitarian caps, and she's got quite a few of these. Even if she were wearing this hat, there would be a cap underneath it. Babies then and now have soft areas of their head until they're fully developed, so this would kind of protect the babies. So I think she has 3 or 4 of these. And then we have powders, which I won't open because they're baby powders, but here are some of her ribbons that have never been used. And this is a very special piece that I just love, this rattle. And this is a little bone rattle, but you can see it's just the perfect scale for her. And then this one, this would be today, the government wouldn't allow this to be a toy for a child, because you know that they'd be eating on it. And I think one bell was probably eaten, and then it has a wonderful whistle. But again, it's a wonderful scale for her. And then we've got our ship of pins. So we have our pink pins and our blue pins. So depending on what mood she was in. At another time, we'll do a program on colors, because the concept of baby colors has changed through the last 200 years. So that's something that we'll talk about at another time. And then, of course, the hangers. I just think that these are out of this world to hang up her clothes. All of this, when she is put away, doesn't go into something that has hanging. It will go in, she has a big baby hamper that everything fits in. And then, of course, with all those powders, she has to have powder puffs. She's quite a bit younger than our doll, Rose Percy, but Rose Percy has actually this very same jar from 1864. So that leads me to believe that those were made for a long time, because we're right now in about 1883. And then, of course, as you can see, she has quite a few presentation pillows. This wouldn't be a pillow that she would drool on. This would be a pillow that if she were being displayed at, say, a sip and see where you invite your friends to come see your newborn baby, she would be presented on that, but not get to stay on it too long. Another thing I want to talk about is the importance of sweaters and crochet work. This is often overlooked by collectors, but it is a very important part of an authentic wardrobe. Whether it's for a lady doll or a baby doll, there will be crocheted pieces. It was a standard part of a wardrobe. And so she's got her just basic sweater that's really unchanged even today, and her booties, and she's got quite a few sets of booties. This is the pair that everyone goes crazy for, though, I have to tell you. And these are just some needlepoint needlepoint slippers, and they go with this ensemble. Now, I have never removed her booties that she's wearing right now because, and I've had her for over now, I think 40 years, and I've never removed those because I don't think I could ever get the ribbons back in the place that they are. Now, she's got all these spectacular clothing items, and then she just has your basic baby dress because, and this is a commercially made baby dress, and you know, she had to have these because these dolls were played with. Although she doesn't look like she was ever played with, she was played with. This would have been a Sunday doll. This would have been the very important French doll. Thank you for being with Rose today, and I hope you have a wonderful time collecting all of these wonderful things for beautiful bébés.
Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.